online, grab them, and bring them up here. Especially those that are, are Euro, like little peek, you are being teleported in. So now I don't have time to talk to her, just send her a teleport. So if she's down on the land, someone send her a message and let her know that we are doing this morning, and I'm doing it particularly for the East Coast Euro and Asian crowd, the ones that generally miss my regulars. Okay, I have made my coffee, but I have not had my cigarette. So, bear with me. I am going to go ahead and start anyway. That just means that, oh, well, I see people still showing up. Maybe I should give everyone a moment to gather their wits about them and arrive. Yes, I will do that. I will give everyone a moment to gather their wits about them and arrive. But some of you, okay, I know that it's being recorded and that's great, but some of you might want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil because diagrams may occur. I'm not going. It'll be of interest. Mayhap. I don't see if she showed up or not. So, someone send that little elf a message and get her all dragged on up here. Yeah. All right. All right. I've said it 4 times now. Okay, I am gonna go and finish getting my coffee ready, and obviously, Jaluk Zach cannot hear, so someone help him with that. And for those, just pass the word on to all the people that are. Yes, I am speaking. Yes. So, grab your ears. Get them all hooked properly. I will be back in a moment. I'm going to allow people to get themselves all set up. Yes, I type pretty quickly. Alright, I'm going to turn off my headset for a second while I go get coffee. Pass the word, for those of you who can hear me, pass the word on to everyone else to get themselves set up, and I'll be right back. Vendujal. Okay, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get this rolling. I got my coffee. No problem. So my apologies to all the people that have sent me IMs. I don't have, especially the people that are not here and cannot hear me. Okay, someone grab Gabrielle. You know, she's all the time saying, she's Asian, she never gets to come to these things. So drag herself up here. Okay. Now, as many of you know, I'm archaeologist, anthropologist, sociologist, in addition to having been a nurse and a medic in the army, and teach children with autism. So, I have a relatively unique perspective. Oh, and of course, I study ancient religions. So I have a relatively unique perspective on the creation mythologies, which, for those of you that are Alfar, or know any Alfar, which all of you do, will come in handy. So we are going to start out all the way in the beginning, okay? Because in the beginning, there was pure, unadulterated, only chaos, okay? But because the nature of chaos itself has no order, it is chaos. Chaos begat itself and created the plane of law. Not that it wanted to, but it did. And also the elemental force that would someday be called love. Those two, everywhere they touched, new planes were created. Everywhere the plane of law and plane of chaos intersected, a new plane was created. They're all baby planes. Alright. The first of these baby planes that develops is Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil is the world tree. It is a huge tree that later on has 9 planes that develop from it. But in the beginning, it did not. In the beginning, it had 3. Okay? It had Alfheim, Svart Alfheim, and Niflheim. Okay? And the first populace for Yggdrasil, the first populace of Yggdrasil were on these 3 planes. In addition, at the bottom of the tree was Nidog. Nidog was the ancient serpent, the first dragon. Okay? And the first 3 planes were each populated with the first 3 kinds of elves. Okay? First 3 kinds of elves. Alright? And Alfheim developed the high elves. And Svart Alfheim developed the stone elves. And Niflheim developed the moon elves. Okay? That was in the beginning. Now, and then from Nidog developed the draconic race. Now, at this time, dragons were beasts. They were not an intelligent species, as it became later on. They were equivalent to monstrous, ultra powerful tigers. Okay. Now, over time, many other planes developed in Yggdrasil, as well as the other baby planes across the planar fold began to develop. Asgard is one of the planes that developed, as well as Midgard, Jotunheim. Totals up to 9. All right. And then out of the chaos, a lot of things happen here. This is the beginning here. I'm going fast. All right. I'm not being specific on all the little things that happen. But out of the chaos, from at one of the points where they touch, a huge entity, a squid, emerges and attempts to devour Yggdrasil. Nidog attacks. So we have a titanic battle that is the size of a plane. Okay. The battle is so incredibly large that none of us would even be a speck of dust in the plane. Matter of fact, we'd be a speck of dust in the speck of dust. So, Nidog and this giant squid fight, and in the battle, a splinter from the root of Yggdrasil is dislodged and stabs the squid. So between its splinter and Nidog, the squid retreats back into the plane of chaos. And because of that, the chaos denizens are born. In the plane of chaos, it starts having little pocket planes all along its edge as well. And Illithid and Aboleth and many other relatively abnormally looking beasties are developed in the plane of chaos. Okay? Now, while this is going on, the Aesir and the Vanir are fighting against each other, because the Aesir begin in Asgard and on Midgard, and there are no humans yet. Okay, there are no Alfar are the only intelligent species at this point. But over time, there becomes the human gods, the first set. You know, we've already gone through the elder gods, and now we are beginning. the ancient gods and the elven gods. I mean, the elder gods, and now the first set of gods. But everybody's fighting against each other because everybody is trying to find their way in the universe. Okay. And the Aesir and the Vanir fight. The Vanir are the first elven gods. Okay. And many of them are scattered throughout the plains. Okay. But during this time, as the gods are developing, one of the Aesir, who's actually a half-breed, is half Jotunheim, half Jotun, goes to the Moon Elves. By the way, Tal is the elven word for elf. Okay? So if you are an elf, then you don't call yourself an elf. You're Tal or Ulf. Okay? Depending on who you're talking to. Humans are the ones who named us elves. Alright? Tal, spelled T-E-L, but pronounced T-A-L, is our race name. Alright? Alright, anyway. So this half-giant, half Asgardian goes to the Moon Elves and goes to one of their leaders, a female, because she's a powerful warrior, and he knows that she's in a love triangle. Okay? And he's a trickster. Okay? And he knows a lot of things about a lot of things. So he tells her, hey, you know what? I will help you get what you want. Because I know you want to marry that guy right there. I know you, and I will help you get that. And I know in order to marry him, you have to have a lot more power. Okay? Because you're not a greater god. Alright? Yeah, you're a good warrior. Alright, but you're not a greater god, so you're not going to be able to do this thing. And she agrees. She says, alright. And he tells her, it's okay. I have a contact that will help you out. You just have to if you do these things, then you'll get the power to help your goals. In return, I would like you to pledge your people to help me take over Asgard. Okay? And she doesn't have any loyalty to Asgard. The Asgardians and the Vanir have been fighting. They always have been. For reasons unknown, they just can't get along. Sometimes they do, but not always. So she says, alright, cool. And so that's right. So he says, alright, this is what we gotta do. So he takes her on a plane travel trip, and she meets these powerful chaos lords, the ancient gods, the elder ones, okay, the Oberonth, demons before there are demons, okay, and although, by the way, the Abyss and the Nine Hells and stuff are starting to develop because they were touched by the touching. Okay, but anyway, she goes there, and she talks to this elder god, to this Oberonth, and he agrees. He says, "All right, if you help him take over Asgard, if you lend your forces to his, then I will give you extra power." And she says, "Okay." And they shake on it and do all the things that you're supposed to do, blood brothers and all that jazz. And he goes, bam. And her and all her people, all her section of the Moon Elves, they all turn ebon-skinned with white hair and red eyes and develop a ferocious taste for death and pain. I lived up to my end of the bargain. I gave you what you wanted. Now you go help him. So, she gathers her Moon Elves, or no longer Moon Elves, now they are Dark Elves, and attack Asgard. They do not win, because the Asgardians enlist the aid of the Alfar, the High Elves, and and start calling in markers all over the place. This is where they start making allies, because up to this point they were by themselves, But now, with the attack by this half-god and his dark elf allies, they had no choice. So they make allies. A lot of things happen at this time. But the end result is that the half-god and his giants and his dark elves do not win. Alright? And the dark elves are stuck with this blessing and curse by because he's not going to take it back. He's like, alright, you didn't win. You did not help him. You now have this thing forever. So, bloodlust and all. So at this point, everybody starts turning on the elves. Whether you're a high elf or a dark elf, they start turning on each other, on all the elves. And this former moon elf queen is elevated to a greater god, and many things ensue. Alright, now, from there, some of the other touches have become other planes of existence. Okay. And so since the elves are now being persecuted by all the others planes in Yggdrasil, they start seeking a way out. Okay. Now, at this time, the first magician, my predecessor, finds a way to get the elves out of Idris. Not all are going to leave, but he does. So he gets those that wish. He creates a portal into another plane, and the four races. Now there were three. Now there are four of elves. There were the stone elves, the high elves, and the moon elves. Well, now there are dark elves too. Okay. They cross over through the plane, through this portal, into this new world. Okay. This new world is populated only by dragons before they are intelligent. They are just massive beasts at this time. Still fire breathing, some of them. Not unintelligent, but not intelligent. Okay? Now, once he opens this portal through there, that changes everything. Because now the world is filled with magic. All right. The elemental planes begin to open up at this point. Okay. So not only do you have this raw new planet that's uninhabited by intelligent species, but it is inhabited. These elves come across into it. For lack of a better word, I'm going to call it a boat. Okay? Just makes it easier. And when they arrive, they find this raw, wicked planet, and they end up splitting, each one finding their own way to survive in this new hostile environment. And subsequently, there become 13 races. Okay? 13 elven races. Because they each need to find their own way. High elves, which were one of the base types, they decided to build cities. And that is how they're going to defend themselves against this new hostile world. Sun elves are the fairy elves. So they actually reside in the Feywilds, okay, which is a newly birthed plane. That they're not there yet, but they go there. Yes, this is where the panels begin. You're right. Yes, because they just vacated across. You got the sun elves. And they are gold-skinned, gold-haired, and gold-eyed. Okay? They are as much fae as any fae ever is, but they're elves. And then you got the moon elves, which are opposite of dark elves because they are who begat dark elves. They have pure white skin, pure black hair, and bright blue eyes. Okay, that's the base. Of course, obviously there are some variations, just like there are among our bloodline. Okay. And then you have the dark elves, who are the reverse twin of the moon elves. Okay. black skin, white hair, and red eyes. And then you have those, and then you have those elves that began to even further separate. You got some of the high elves they didn't go for the city, you know. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to keep us safe. They find refuge in fire, okay, in the lava, volcanoes, and the raw, wicked world upon which they stand. They're like, you know what? Let's use this. Let's use this fire to survive. So they end up, they doing that because elves and fae are very connected with the environment, but it has to start somewhere. So this is where it starts with elves. Is they cross this this planar force. So one set chooses fire as survival. Another set says, well, you know what? The polar caps up here. There's no monsters. There's no way to hurt anybody up here. So let's use this location. So they go to the remote south and north and become ice elves. They have light blue skin, sometimes gray, typically white hair, but could be blonde, and ice blue eyes. And they are, just as the fire elves are completely immune to fire, ice elves are completely immune to cold of any variety. Elves in general can run around naked while it's snowing, or wear a parka in the desert. But fire elves go another step farther. They are even more immune to fire. You can sit there and burn them, and it's going to do nothing to them. Ice elves, you can freeze them, are going to do nothing to them. Okay, because they were birthed in an environment that was inhabited by wild dragons, feral dragons. Which brings up another point as I'm moving along here. When the magic flooded the world, dragons were given intellect. Okay, so your first intelligent dragons are beginning now too. Okay, all right. Now, another set of the original elves were the stone elves. Okay. Now, when the stone elves separate from everyone else, they further split. Okay. Some of them bury themselves, say, you know what, the earth will work fine for us here, and they become stone elves, earth elves. But and then they slowly start becoming dwarves. Okay, stone elves are dwarves. Okay. Malikith Virtanen chest. Okay. But the stone elves that find themselves afraid, okay, they have given in to the fear of the world, okay, and unlike their cousins, the stone elves, who subsequently become dwarves, they go deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth. Deeper than the dark elves go. The dark elves go into the earth because of the darkness. They find the darkness to be their way to defend against the world. Deep elves go farther than that. Now, deep elves have white skin, white hair, and white eyes. Oftentimes they're blind. Okay, but they have echolocation, so it's okay. They don't actually need to see. Some of them do, but they go farther. Okay. Now, a lot of times, the deep elves, they're the cowardice that began now. A lot of times it runs through, but it doesn't stay. Sverfnebelin, actually correct. Sverfnebelin, and gnomes in general, are an offshoot of the deep elves. Okay. Very smart. Okay. And then another set of the stone elves, they decide that they're going to stay up near the surface, but because they don't trust the deep depths of the earth. Okay, and they become the Iron Elves. Subsequently, Iron Elves become orcs. Okay. But they find that crafting iron from these surface materials and the near surface materials is how they're going to survive. Okay. And another set that split off from the high elves are the wood elves, and another set splits off for the wood elves, because the first set of wood elves, the base wood elves, they are green, or they are brown with green hair. They find refuge in the great forests. Okay. And then another wood elf is the Sylvan elf. Not Sylvan as in Sylvara. There's no H in the name. But it's the Sylvan elf, which means wood. And they become your normal, typical elves. They are they're the most common elves. Because they don't have a problem with anyone. Wood elves are kind of xenophobic. Okay? Your standard wood elves. And they hide them, and they hide in the forest, make the forest their home. But another branch of the wood elves, which are subsequently the Sylvan elves, they don't have any issues with any particular peoples. Okay? They are your most friendly type, and they are what becomes known as the Sylvan elf. In a lot of games, wood elf is actually a Sylvan elf. You pick up ESO or whatever, and they say you can be a wood elf. Well, what they're actually telling you is you can be a Sylvan elf, which, is technically Sylvan means wood, so that's cool. But the Sylvan elf is your standard elven type. They've got, sleight of build, brown hair, can be blonde, can be black, but typically brown. They have a, regular complexion. They can be a little light, it can be a little rusty, it can be. They're the most human looking of all of the tall. Okay. All right. And then there are the elves that have decided to climb to the highest mountains and achieve, and that is how they're going to stay away from all the people. Okay, that's how they're going to stay away from and survive. Is that they are at the top. They go to the top of the mountains, and okay, so what is that? Okay, someone asked me about the deep elves. I'll go back to that in just a minute. I they came in later in the class. But if you have questions, and I hope you do, please ask them. But wait. All right, now so the elves that go to the top of the mountains to survive and stay away from everyone, they develop an affinity towards the wind, the rain, and the light. They become storm elves, and they are now they have typically blonde hair, and they are everyone good back so on off please turn it off. There we go. Are we good? Everybody can hear me now. We haven't gone to Averia yet. We're on Storm Elves. Okay. Yeah. The elves that find themselves up in the mountains and to survive, they have an affinity towards wind, rain, and lightning. Subsequently, they become immune to electricity. Okay? They typically have blue skin and blonde hair. Obviously, there's some variation, but that is the general look on them. Now, another set, yes, like that. Yeah, but probably a little prettier than the Smurfs. Smurfs are cool, but they're not pretty. Another set decides that the animals of the world are how you are going to survive. Now, in the beginning, remember, the animals of the world are dragons. Okay? Now, over time, other animals are developed. Okay? But at the beginning of animals are dragons. Right? And this set they are the wild elves. Now, wild elves have an affinity towards animals. Okay? Those that end up with an affinity to birds become the Averial. Okay? Those that with an affinity towards dolphins, okay, that they ultimately the Mer are born, but we're not talking aquatic elves yet. Okay, we still haven't got there. You'll get there in a sec. But there are a set of elves that live in the deepest oceans that are aquatic, like aquatic elves, but they are part dolphin, basically. Okay, just like a Varial are essentially part bird. You know, they have hollow bones and wings. All right, they have chosen bird as their way of survival. Same thing. There is a dragon type of wild elf. Okay, and there is a wolf type. First one will be the Lethari, but the wild elves choose the animals from nature and make an entire race, if for lack of a better word, section of a race, ethnic group. That would be the best way to put it. Ethnic group. On that. Okay. Avarials, as you all know, are probably the most common of the wild elves, but they're not the only wild elf. Alright. And then, of course, as we just touched on, there is the aquatic elf, who decide that the water is how they're going to survive this new hostile environment. Subsequently, they learn to survive in that venue. They breathe underwater. Okay, they develop gills so they can breathe air as well. They can breathe air and water. And the fate types are starting to come into the world as well. So now there starts being a variety of standard fate types, because when the first magician opened that portal, it started making it possible for all the portals to be touched and touch each other. Okay? So the prime material plane it was opened up to everything else. The ethereal, the ether, the nether, the astral, the upper and the lower, as well as the elemental planes. They all began at that point to be able to interact with one another. Now, it cost the first magician his life. Okay? Exactly, that's correct. Once you open the hole, it made it so that everything was connected. Okay? It wasn't just a hole. It was more like, unwrapping a chocolate bar, and suddenly everybody knows it's there. Okay? Rather than drilling a hole into it. Sort of like it didn't draw everyone in like a beacon, more like a lighthouse. Okay? This is out there. You can do it, or you don't have to, But it made it so that all of the other planes could interact with one another. Because up to this point, unless you were directly connected to each other, like the ether planes, like Yggdrasil. All the 9 Yggdrasil planes were connected to each other. It was connected by the world tree. So they interacted with one another at this already. Okay? But they didn't have any knowledge of the 9 hells or the 666 planes of the abyss. Okay? None of the planes had any knowledge of anyone else, just themselves. Now, when the magician was seeking an escape for the Alfar, for the Tal, he changed all that. Now everybody knows who everybody else is. And it begins a whole new ballgame begins. The prime material plane at this point suddenly becomes the focus of all these other individuals. Now, like I said, the magician dies in this when he does this, but he does stop the war between Tal and man. Okay, not that it doesn't continue on Midgard, not that it doesn't continue on Asgard for those who didn't leave, but generally speaking, the war ended at that point. Okay. Cost him his life, but that's what he did. Now, there is one other type of elf that came from this boat. Sand elf is a fire elf that just lives in the desert. Star elf is another name for a moon elf. Okay. By the way, the moon elves, because of a lot of them at this point, they start finding a way to get out of here. Okay, and most of the moon elves end up on they're the ones who made the ships. They're the ones who made spelljammers. And most of them reside in the ethereal or astral planes. Very few are actually stay on the ground. Okay? Most of them, they are so mad at the queen that caused dark elves that they don't want to be around anymore. Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. And I will want more questions, but I have one more that I want to throw out there. Now, the nether plane has been opened up, right? Yes. And elves are pretty much immortal, right? They don't die of old age. They don't die of poisons. They don't die of diseases. And they adapt, at least initially, not so much anymore, but they adapt to their environment so they become a new species. When time settles, we don't adapt like we did in the beginning, but essentially, yes. Well, in the beginning, one of the adaptations from the nether was the first few elves that died adopted the nether into themselves. And that made it so the 13th race was born. Banshee. Banshee. undead elves. 13th race of elves is an undead race. They're the only type of undead that, that can actually procreate. They can actually, and even then it's not an easy task. Requires a lot of magic, a lot of sacrifice, but it is possible. Because they do not, unlike vampires bite people. Zombies bite people. Werewolves bite people in order to make new ones of themselves. That is how they procreate. Okay? Yeah, but they don't procreate that way. But yes, that's true. Banshees do not bite people. Okay? In order to procreate their race. You know, they can take the spirits of the morning, people mourning, not with, as in sad, and make them into banshees. They have that ability to do so. Okay, is to make the sad into a banshee. But they can, or what they do more often than not is that they gather the sadness from others and they collect it and keep it in a little jar, in a little, or necklace or whatever they have, until they have enough of it. Okay, and then when they have enough of it, then they can mate with a baron, which is a male banshee, still a banshee. Okay, and a new banshee is born, a new undead elf. But they have to collect sadness because nothing else is going to make it happen. They go around and they collect sadness, and the sadder you are, the more that they're gonna take it. Okay, it's like similar to the life force that a succubus will steal. Succubus and incubus, they feed off of life force that happens during sexual acts. Okay, that's how they survive. Okay, banshee is similar, except it's sadness that they feed off of. Okay, and if they collect that sadness, then they can have more banshees. Okay, let's see. That covers the entire gambit of the elves. All the 13. And I know you may be looking and say, you know what? I counted more than 13 here. Well, yes, of course you did. The reason is because some of them subdivide. Okay? Like the deep elves. Somebody dropped me an IM question because they missed the deep elf conversation. The deep elves, who are albino, except for they don't have red eyes. Deep elves are white with white eyes and white hair, and they were the they're the ones that they were the stone elves that could not fight anyone else. They to call them cowards, I would hate to do that, but maybe let's just use that. And the Svirfneblin who spun off from them. That's who the deep elves are. Those are the white elves that someone was just asking me about. Deep elves. They're not dark elves. They're deep elves. Uh, okay. Now, I'm going to let you guys all chat about everything that we've just talked about because I know there was a lot of stuff. Okay. And did not go through that slowly. In an hour, I gave you about 10 years worth of knowledge. So you guys talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes. I'm finally going to have that cigarette that I woke up and did not have because I went straight here. And I will be right back. You all chat and so that you have questions to ask when I return. I've had questions dropped in my IM, so I know they're out there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. Grab my coffee, grab my smoke, and I'll be right back. After these messages. Right back to the show. Okay, I am back. So, hopefully you've all been thinking about questions. Can't hear me? Alright. Okay, good. There we are. Okay, hopefully you all have questions. Bubby and I'm actually, I have two of our players are working on that. Um, uh, Barkeep right there is working on the Elven book and is working on pictures and a family tree, for lack of a better word, for that. So it will be helpful. Any of you who have representatives of those races, of the Elven types, get with him because I know he needs pictures. Before I definitely want to ask, I want to answer questions, but I want to ask something real fast of everyone in this room. Has anyone figured out who that moon elf was that was in a love triangle that caused the dark elves? Has anyone figured out who that was? Yes. It was Loth. Sometimes referred to as Loth, depending on and yes. Depends on if you speak any of the Tal languages, it's Loth. For those that are non-Talian, it's pronounced Loth. She was a moon elf. She is not. Okay. But she is the queen. She was the queen of the moon elves. And she was the first dark elf. All right. She is the reason dark elves exist. All right. Has anyone figured out who the trickster was? Correct. Loci. All right. You're right. Loci tricks Loth into going and making a deal with the Obereths, and subsequently creates the race that is now Dark Elves. Alright, that's good. Something else that I wanted to mention real fast before I answer questions is that elves have a unique kind of magic that no one else has. Okay? And that is shaping. Okay? Wendy Peeny and her husband actually coined the phrase, and I liked it, and it fit in with the incarnation. Yes, correct. Elf class. That fit in with everything that all the mythologies that I have ever read. So I adopted it. Shaping. Elves have their magic is internal, as all arcane magics are, but it is specific to a variety that they are. Okay, dark elves developed the ability to shape the darkness. Okay, stone elves developed the ability to shape stone. Okay, Iron elves develop the ability to shape iron. Okay? That's why orcs have the best weapons. Typically. Anyway. Shaping. Not shaping. Shaping. Yes, with a P. Anyway. Alright. Yes, shaping. The last one is correct. So, now I will open up the floor to questions. Okay, I will type it out, because apparently it's just to make sure that everyone has it. Alright. Okay. Yes. And they did pretty well. They followed the mythologies relatively well, but you have to go deep into it. But ElfQuest does a pretty good job of following the true mythologies. But you have to go into it. You can't just read it as a standard comic book and get it. Okay. And also, it's inherent. All elves shape something. Okay, the reason that here in SL that dark elves can throw out a blob of dark is because of their dark orb power. It's because they can shape darkness. Okay? Yes. Yes. Richard and Wendy Peeney did it. They did a very good job. Whether I don't know how much archaeological or anthropological knowledge that they drew from, or mythological, but they nailed it pretty well. Okay, definitely worth the read. Definitely worth the read, especially Blood of 10 Chiefs and that's the first one that comes to my mind. It's Blood of 10 Chiefs. If you read that one, you'll understand the whole concept. Everything that I have told you is, and then after hearing what I told you, and then read Blood of 10 Chiefs, it will unfold. It'll make a lot of sense. Okay. So go ahead and ask your questions. Here's your opportunity to do so. I had one question about deep elves, and I answered that already. And do realize that sea elves and aquatic elves are not the same. Sea elves are a wild elf that chose sea creatures, as opposed to aquatic elves, which chose the water itself. Not the same. Okay. Storm elves and Averial both live in the same areas, but storm elves chose the natural elements, okay, whereas Averial chose birds. So there are definitive similarities between aquatic elves and nymphs. Whereas water nymphs are actually fae, and elves are related to fae. Elves are fae kin. Okay. the the origin of Fae is they develop on the elemental planes, and when they hit the prime, they become they became mortal. Okay, but they started out as, rather than with the elves, there was four types. Once they hit the prime, they subdivided because they needed some way of survival. Okay. Fae were already that, and they came here and then they lost their immortality. Okay. Okay, let me answer the lore keeper's question. As far all half breeds, the way a half breed works, because you're half of a magic species, quote unquote, then you'll have some of the abilities of your parent. Okay, 50% at most. Okay, but a lot of them, they don't have any of the abilities of their parent. They just look pretty. Okay, storm elves. Storm elves. Right, exactly. Half elves they do not have the meditative state called reverie that all other elves acquire because they're half breeds. Whether you're half human or half dwarf, because yes, dwarves were elves at one time, but now they're not. They still have, they're compatible, but they are their own race now. If your parents are two different types of elves, like the deep elf, not albino elf, okay? If you're half deep elf and half dark elf, then you will have, some of the abilities from both sides. Okay. Dwarf elf cross is called a mule. Okay. MUL. That's right. Okay. Now, let me go back to Barkeep's question. Storm elves. Storm elves are blue-skinned, typically blonde-haired. Variations, of course. They are immune to electricity. Okay. And they, live in the top, as high a mountains as they can. And their inherent abilities have everything to do with making rain. Okay. So they usually stay up there. Okay. Belados for attendance, Jalili Fu, Bendas for now. Aquan colors, the aquatic elves. Aquatic elves can be any color across the board. They can be striped like a lionfish, or a clownfish, or they can be blue or green. He is showing you a storm elf. He's in the process of that. Oh, well, that's what it looked like to me. All right. Okay. Oh, the aquatic elf. Yes, there we go. Yes, that is your typical aquatic elf. Obviously, they have gills, as opposed to any other type of elf. Yeah, I probably should wear something. Okay. Um, any other questions? I think we lost one of our dark elves. Slipped off into the universe. Okay. Uh, this is your opportunity to throw those elven. Oh, okay. All right. It's recorded, so she'll catch what she missed, and you can always catch her up. This is your opportunity to throw those questions out to me. Because, elves, it's one of my favorite topics, so it's not like I won't ever talk about it again. Yes, wood elves shape wood like druids do. That's correct. That's a lot. That's the green variety of wood elves. That's why they're so hard to find. Okay, because they go out. They're xenophobic. They don't like people. They go out in the woods and they make it so that you can't find them. Okay, they move the trees around, move the grass around, so that you're not gonna. If you go hunting for them, unless you know what you're doing, you're not gonna find them. Druids, yeah, of course, a druid's gonna find a wood elf because druids worship nature. All right. In fact, they'll probably be friends. They might be the only people a wood elf is going to be cool with. Because wood elves are very xenophobic, but they are going to like druids and rangers. Yes, they're going to like wood folk. Okay, as possible, because they're they're xenophobic. But if you show that you worship nature, if they know that, which it's pretty hard not to know that, then they're going to be cool with you, no matter what race you are. But they are xenophobic, so you're going to have to prove yourself. Okay. Which brings up another point. Dark elves do not inherently hate everyone else. Okay. But they were at war with all the other kinds of elves. So there is a lot of bias against dark elves. That's not elven, but yes, um, humans are not related to elves. Okay. Humans are related to the Aesir. Okay. Humans and elves were in the beginning at war with one another because the Vanir and the Aesir were one another. Okay. But thanks to Sylvan elves, humans and elves get along now. Okay. Humans and elves get along now, but in the beginning, many, many moons ago, they did not. Humans are xenophobic also. Okay. Not to the extent of wood elves, because they don't have shaping abilities. But humans have a tendency to hate everyone that is not human. Okay. But because of Sylvan elves, we've got to the point where we are not always killing each other. And the fact that elves live a lot longer than humans do, and humans breed like rabbits, so they actually outnumber us 10,000 to 1. You know. So, did I answer your question? here in about 20 minutes, I will be starting a bard class. Alright, so, dragons were the first animals. They have been around for a really long time. But they didn't have intellect until the elves showed up. But the first dragon, the dog, is the reason Yggdrasil was not eaten. Okay. So dragons are important. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?